the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. It's the blockchain spell made of David. Got so much to
Hello, GM, and welcome to another episode of the Blockchain Experience. I'm your host, David. Today's episode is a bit longer than usual, but it's a real banger, I promise you. Our guest is Ray Chan, the founder and CEO of 9gag, which is a parent company to one of the most successful projects in the space, the Memeland ecosystem. So the ecosystem consists of Memeland MVP, and we talk on the podcast about the origins of the name, a little bit different than what I originally thought. Memeland potatoes, Memeland captains, and of course Meme Coin, which is an awesome and affordable way to on-ramp into the ecosystem. Again, something that we talk about on the pod. Now, Ray being as notable as he is, he has been on a lot of podcasts and other forms of media. So instead of asking him, the usual things about like community, I focused a little bit more, and I guess it's because of my background, more on the business side of things, like the origins of 9gag, which dates back to the 2000s, being a part of YCombinator and 500 Startups, which is two of the most prestigious tech accelerators, and they were in both of them. And things that they did to go from having a successful Web 2 brand to having a successful Web 2 brand and a successful Web 3 brand, which is a bit of a unicorn in this space. So hopefully you'll hear a little bit different than you're used to about 9gag, Memeland, and of course, Ray Chan. So we'll do the interview, and then after that, I'll give you guys some updates. So let's jump into it. Mr. Ray Chan, 9gag CEO, how are you doing today, sir?
Good. GM. Yeah.
GM. So Ray, it's an incredible privilege to have you on the show for both me and my listeners. For me on a personal level, because I'm a founder, you're a founder, you're someone that I look up to in the Web3 space, and someone that I take a lot of notes from. And I have to say, I love the Memeland website because it starts with you saying you started 9gag in 2008, you were nobody and you knew nothing. And I feel like oftentimes us founders feel like that. So I wanted to start with 9gag for our listeners who may not know. Can you tell us like a little bit about the genesis story of 9gag? Like what were the circumstances for you that inspired you to do? What was going on in the world at that time that inspired you to start 9gag? And so, yeah, just kind of give us a little bit about the origin story and what led you to start 9gag.
Yeah, sure. 9gag is the biggest independent meme platform, right, across the internet. Right, we have about 200 million audience every month, right, and we started 9gag in 2008. Right, the company mission was very simple. Right, we want to make the world happier. Right, that's why at the time when AOL Messenger was still a thing, when MSN Messenger was still a thing, right, it took a lot of time to share a funny picture. You have to wait for it to upload and stuff, right? That's why at the time we thought, hey, why can't we launch a website where you upload the photos there, right? And then you just send out the link, right? That was the original idea. So the whole concept was like click a button and then you get a funny photo, right? That was the idea. And turns out we've been working on it, and then it's always kind of like doing the same stuff, and people love it, and then we expand to different platforms, so having our apps, having our social media platform, stuff like that, right? But before 9gag, we actually launched a few more, I would say, quote-unquote, more useful products, right? But turns out people don't love like useful products, yeah. People love like funny shit, right? And that's why we focus on the funny shit, yeah.
So it looks like, yeah, I mean, when I even look through 9gag right now, it's just a bunch of funny shit. I saw a video on there of an e-gamer who was like a very attractive woman and said like, hey, this is how you make $20,000, 3 hours. And then the woman started taking off a whole bunch of makeup and it turned out to be very much a man. So definitely made me laugh when I looked through some of the content on there. So as you said, you started 9gag in 2008, and I guess this is me just kind of wearing my like fanboy founder hat on a little bit. And I know that some of our listeners are also company founders as well. So 3 years later, it looks like you joined 500 Startups, and then a year later after that, YCombinator. And so for our listeners who don't know, 500 Startups and YCombinator are what are called like startup accelerator programs. So they're typically around like 12 weeks. I might be a little bit off on that, but around that time, generally on site in places like San Francisco, where you're like just heads down building, mingling with other co-founders and kind of working together. And then at the end, you hope to get some sort of, you build an MVP and you also hope to get some sort of like seed investment from the accelerator program that you are in. So I know, Ray, that it was like 10 years ago, but you talked about like what you did with 9gag and wildly successful, obviously. And then you made the foray into Web3, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I might be like, sounds like I'm reverse asking the questions, but I got to just ask this. Were there any learnings that you had from 500 startups or Y-Combinator that you could say you applied to the Web3 world? Or would you just say like, no, man, these are like two totally different universes? I mean, I learned a lot in 500 startups, Y-Combinator, but none of that stuff was applicable here in Web3.
I would say that building companies, right, whether it's like Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, the core is the same, right? Is to make something people want, right? That's the YC slogan. Right? And of course, during 500 Startups and also YC, right, we met a lot of good founders, right? We also learn from each other. I think all these kind of peer support, building communities, right, within the startup circle, right, is very much similar to how you build in Web3, right? So I would say that all the learnings, right, kind of like explain why we could do quite well, right, in Web3 after like 2 years, right, become like the top NFT ecosystem in Asia, top 10 in the world. We launched our own token, right, with a fully diluted valuation of over 1 billion, right? I mean, all of this, I mean, of course, we are super lucky, right? But at the same time, I would say that all these past like 10, 15 years of experience, right, that also helps.
So, yeah, I'm hearing that it definitely helps. And I think, 9gag being very much meme-centric, and then Web3, at least the project, is very much meme-centric, and that's your guys' foray into that. How did you discover Web3, and what made you, like, what compelled you to kind of make that jump there? And did you have any concerns about how it could, like, affect your brand, or, like, would it maybe be off-brand or not well-received, or how did that thought process look for you guys at the time?
Yeah, sure. Let me take one step back, right, to explain how we think about 9gag in the past, right, and also how we think about Memeland right now. Right? I always believe that launching a company, right, building a startup is kind of like playing basketball. You can play basketball anywhere, right? But if you really want to become like the top of the world, you need to play at the NBA, right? And Silicon Valley was or is the NBA of like startups, right? That's why when we were starting 9gag in the past, right, we always wanted to, okay, we should get into like Silicon Valley, right? We should join one of the top accelerators. That's why we applied for 500 Startups. That's why we applied for Y-Combinator, right? We actually get rejected twice or 3 times, right, by YC, right? But we finally got in. In between, we raised some seed round of funding, right? And we are I think if I remember it correctly, we are actually the first Asia-based company getting into 500 startups. We're also the first Asia companies that get into Y-Combinator, right? So we are kind of first in Asia, right, in the past. And like, let's fast forward, right? Right now in Web3, right? If I have to use another basketball as an analogy, it's almost like, hey, we are like 7 feet tall, right? But all the past years when we were building in Web 2, right, people don't care about that much, right? Because it focuses a lot on local markets, right? Because if the revenue model is more about advertising, right, then you need to be really, really big in one country, in one place. Right? Meanwhile, in Web3, they actually don't care about where you are based, right? As long as you are willing to participate in the community. So why we say that, we are like 7 feet tall? Because it's like, okay, Web3 is a game called basketball. That fits a lot for the tall people, right? So that's how we feel about it when Web3 started, right? Because it talks a lot about like communities, right? It talks a lot about common goals. It talks a lot about building together. Right? And that was all like 9gag about, right? And of course, Web3 is all there. There are meme coins. There are so many memes sharing every day. And Nightgate was all about meme as well, right? So we feel like, oh, this is like a natural fit for us, right, to get into Web3, right? But if I have to answer the core question, which is when we first started, it was around like 2018, right, when there were a lot of like ICOs and stuff. A lot of people reach out to us, hey, Ray, you should launch an ICO called Nightgate Coin or whatever, right? And they make some money, right? And at the time, I tried to use like MetaMask. It was so difficult to use, right? That's why I thought, hey, this shit won't get anywhere, right? That's why I kind of like forget it. And of course, like ICO boom and bust, right? And we continued to work on the Web2 stuff. Yeah, but about 2 years later, right, we started to, the people started to reach out to us to talk about crypto, talk about like Web3 again, right? And at the time, there was some social movement in Hong Kong. And I feel like, okay, the US and China trade war, it seems like getting more rigorous, right? At the time, I thought, hey, maybe we should try to like branch out as a company, also as a personal level. And that's why I wanted to open a bank account in the UK, right? It took like 6 months, and then it took like so much money, right? But they still haven't opened the account for me and also for a company. And then one of my friends who said, hey, maybe you should open like a on-chain account instead of like an offshore account, right? That's why I started to download an app called Argent, which is like a digital wallet. Right? And at the time, stablecoin was already there. And then I covered 80% of my personal wealth, right, into like USDC. Right? And that was like a very interesting experience for me because, hey, you need so much information, right, to create a bank account, right? But you only need to click a few buttons, right, to open a crypto wallet. And you can on-ramp quite easily at the time. Right, so that was how I started to feel the power of blockchain, right? I started to feel like, okay, this is not a fad, right? This is something that will stay because it's like a revolution. It's like a revolution on the tech level, right? Of course, after getting into the space more, you started to understand it better as well. Yeah.
What I find so interesting about that story is I think people oftentimes are quick to complain at least these days, about how difficult crypto is and how hard it is to use. But I think oftentimes what they neglect is the benefits at the end. And it's not necessary. It's come a long ways, I think, compared to where it was like a few years ago versus today. And so when you're talking about it taking like 6 months and still like the bank account hasn't opened, yeah, maybe crypto's a little bit still clunky, but we're talking about clunky in the terms of like maybe you might have to spend an extra 30 minutes to read like a document or watch a YouTube video. We're not talking about it being a journey of several days, several weeks, several months to kind of get the end result that you want to do, where you want to transfer some money from like A to B. And I find it interesting that, and your story really puts things into perspective about some of the benefits of crypto in terms of just like the banking world that sometimes gets neglected because at least for me, I think I very much live in the NFT land, and so I'm very narrowly focused on that. And sometimes the crypto part, the DeFi part, can get that lost in the background. So yeah, that's really remarkable. So it seems like it probably took a little bit of restraint to say no to the ICO stuff, because having lived it at the time, I mean, there was a lot of money involved, and, hats off to you for like showing some restraint and just saying like, you know what, I just don't think it's for us. But so you made a personal journey into like crypto yourself with your own personal assets. Somewhere along the way, did you kind of like discover NFTs? Like, what was the first, Ray Chan, what's the first NFT that you bought? Like, how did you discover that?
Yeah. This is a good question. Yeah, my first the first NFT that I bought was actually Bored Ape.
Oh yeah, that was the first. What? You went big.
Yeah, I was stupid, right? Stupid not because I bought Bored Ape at its high price, but because I thought, because I've been building community, right, with Nightgate for over a decade, right, and then I thought, hey, if I have to learn, right, and I should just learn from the best, right? That's why at the time people talk about like Bored Ape, how cool the community is, how cool the whole like setup is. They're like the pioneer, the leader in the space. I mean, still are, right? That's why I thought, hey, let's buy the best one, right? And buy the one that I like, right? So that I can just keep it, right? I'm more like a collector instead of a trader, right? And and I bought it, right? And then I joined Bored Ape. I mean, at the time, Bored Ape was already quite a mature community. That's why when I joined, people don't give a fuck about who I am, right? I thought people kind of know NiGet, right? But no one knows what NiGet is. Maybe they're too degen, maybe they're too young and whatever, right? But the thing is, when I went into the Discord, it was actually not very, I mean, it was very active, right? But not very, I would say, constructive in a way that, oh, you would talk a lot about Web3 and stuff. No, it's most of the time, it's like GM, GN, it's like a greeting, right? And then they talk about random topics, right? And that was a little bit different from what I expected, right? That's why I thought, hey, maybe, and then I asked some of my friends, hey, what would be the most active communities that I can join and learn about Web3? I feel like Bored Ape at the time was like they're too advanced in a way that all of these holders, right, they make big bets already. That's why they don't talk about buildings that much, right? And then my friend recommended, oh, maybe you should check out like Kaiju Kings, like Gutter Cat Gang, and Moonbergs and all these like collections, right? So that's why I started to buy more NFTs, and then I keep buying and keep buying and keep learning, right? And of course, keep losing money, right? So when people play to earn, right? I actually pay to learn, right? LEARN. And that's why I started to understand more about what NFT community is, right? And then about like 2 years ago, we started to launch our first NFT collection, right? Because at the time, I thought, hey, we were NiGet, right? And right now, I kind of know about what Web3 community is. If I launch an NFT collection, right, people would buy it. Right? But turns out the timing was bad, and also our strategy was not that good. Right? That's why we didn't sell out. It was when I talk about like 2 years ago, that was like a few weeks after Luna crash, right? And then everyone in crypto thought, oh, that was the end of crypto. Right? Of course, people were too naive, right? They didn't know that FTX also crashed later that year, right? So I would say that it's a fun journey for me. I'm down bad on on my personal NFT bet, right? But I've learned a lot, right? During that period of time, and also still keep learning, right? And also met a lot of friends and I would say community members. Yeah, so it was a fun ride for the last few years. Yeah.
So with you, the real MVP, was that your first NFT collection?
Yes, we actually just try to rename it called like Memeland MVP, right? Because we wanted to kind of like unify the branding, right? When people know that, oh, Memeland has NFTs, right? People know that Memeland has a fungible token, right? For the fungible token, it's called meme coin, right? So it's very easy to understand this is related to Memeland. But for our NFT collections, originally they were named like You the Real MVP, which was from a meme, right? From the Kevin Durant meme. And then we also have two other collections called the Captains and the Potatoes, right? Potatoes is more about like an insider jokes about the from the NiGet community. Or when you have a very long post, right? At the end of the post, people will post a photo of a potato because it feels like, okay, it grows like underground. It's like the roots, right? That's why it's like an insider community joke about NiGet. And then we want to pay tribute to that. That's why we launched our collection called the Potatoes, right? And then for the Captains, it's because we always wanted the Memeland ecosystem kind of like with a private theme, right? Because I love the quote by Steve Jobs saying that, hey, why join the Navy if you can be a pirate, right? So that's why Memeland is always about the private theme. That's why we have the Captains, right? Which is like the private captain, right? And then the MVP, of course, is a joke. And then on the artwork side, it's like a statue, right? So all of this is like something that we thought, oh, it would be cool, right? But turns out after some time, you feel like, okay, the messaging was kind of like confusing. That's why we tried to rename it just like 2 days ago. Yeah. And because we wanted to do more, right, in the coming year. So we need to unify the messaging, right, before we actually push forward. Yeah.
So the new name is Meme MVP or Memeland MVP?
Memeland MVP, Memeland Captains, and also Memeland Potatoes. It's just for better like SEO, right? Just for better search on all the NFT platforms. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So even though I was in the space around that time, I just don't really remember very well. So you're saying that, but I know that the timing was like, June 2022, which was right around when all that stuff is crashing. So you're saying that particular collection didn't perform well at that time. But now it's like, I think like you're looking at like double digits to get into that collection. So that collection, I mean, the holders are pretty diamond handed, and I don't think there's any on sale right now. What kind of utility are those folks getting that they're just absolutely, because that's a high number, especially in this market, to be like, that deep in the double digits. Like, what kind of utility are they getting that these people are not only refusing to sell, but if like one sells, you're looking at like 50 ETH for it.
Yep. Right now, the floor price, right, of MVP is about like 56 ETH, right? And for the captains, it's about 4.2 ETH, and for potatoes, it's around like 2 ETH, right? So I would say that the biggest utility is high floor price, right? because you mint it at a lower floor price, and then right now you can sell at a high floor price, right? That is the biggest utility of NFT. Right? I mean, jokes aside, I would say that when we launch Udemy MVP, we wanted it to be more like a focus group, more like I would say like a literally like an MVP, right? You are a staff founder, right? You understand that the minimal viable product concept, right? So that was the MVP.
Okay.
Right? We wanted to learn about how to. That's also it's on one hand it's the most valuable player. On the other hand, it's also the minimal viable product, right? We wanted to test run how to run an NFT community, right? That's why we launched a small collection, right? Meaning at a relatively high price at the time. And then that's why we didn't sell out. Yeah. And but that was like I would say that was a wake up call for us. Hey, maybe the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 is much bigger than I thought, right? Than we thought, right? And also, the way that we communicate, right? The Web 2 way and Web 3 way should be different, right? So, MVP was a great experience for us. And then in June 2022, we launched MVP. And then 1 month later, we launched the potatoes, which is a free mint, right? So the concept is like, MVP was like a high price mint, and then potatoes is actually a free mint. And then so that we can understand how to manage or how to run the community in different ways. And because MVP is like such a small collection, right? So how you run a group of like 400 people is very different from how to run a group of like 10,000 people, right? So we launched the potatoes to try to expand our ecosystem and also try to run a more like real NFT community, right? So and so far, after like 2 years of so-called bear market, right, we are still surviving. So I would say that we did a pretty good job. Our community has done a great job, right, for us. Yeah, because in Web3, most of the time, it's not just about the team, right? It's also about the community. And as you mentioned, our community is pretty diamond hand. I wouldn't say they are diamond hand. I would say that they are like a value investing. Right? So, they understand that the team is actually building, right? They also understand that, hey, maybe by holding on to the asset, right, they actually get more return, right? Maybe in fun, maybe in value, right? Maybe in money, right? And I think that's the reason why they keep holding on. Yeah.
So can you unpack some of the learnings that you had? Because it seemed like, in June, you had the real MVP, now called Memeland MVP. And then a month later, you had another collection, which was a little bit on the opposite side of the spectrum, 10,000 free mint, granted. So you probably expected it to mint out. But what were some of the learnings that you had in terms of like communication between like how you do it in like the Web 2 world versus the Web 3 world?
Yeah, for sure. For Web 2, it's almost always product first, right? Yeah, you need to build a product, right? Otherwise, you have nothing to talk about. You can't just keep talking about an idea and then that's it, right? Because no investors will give you money, right? Just because you talk about an idea. Meanwhile, in Web3, if you only talk about products all day, basically it will be very bearish, right, for your holders because they feel like there's no room for imagination in the future, right? So in Web3, people care more about narratives, right? For Web2, people care more about what you have right now, right? And in Web3, people care more about the future, I would say. Yeah, and that's number one. Number two is the feedback loop in Web3 is way faster, right? Because people actually have money invested, right, in your community, in your project, right? So they demand a lot, right? And they demand a lot much louder than Web2, right? For Web2, okay, you use a product, that sucks, okay, fuck it, right? And then I just don't use it. Or in Web3, you put in thousands of dollars, right? And then if the product or if the community sucks, right, then people will complain, right? And the thing is, if you bought it, if you minted it, right? Of course, for example, like the potatoes, if you minted it, it's free, right? And people are happy, right? Because it's free, and then it goes up to like 1 ETH, 2 ETH, right? They are like, on paper, it's like the return is like infinite, right? Because the starting point was 0, right? But at the same time, when you have a floor price of like 1 ETH, 2 ETH, that means that some people are buying at a higher price, right? So they will expect you to deliver even more. So it's like an infinite, I would say infinite demand, right, from the community that, okay, I want you to deliver, right? So this is like something that people wouldn't experience in Web2 because, okay, I sell SaaS product, right, for like $10 a month, right? Then people expect, okay, I get like $10 or maybe more value. That's it, right? But if for NFT, even if you minted a free mint, right, a free collection, people will still expect you to deliver a lot of value, right? Because they bought in at different price point, right? So I think all this kind of stuff explains why I would say 99.9% of Web2 companies fail in Web3, right? It's not because they don't know how to execute. It's because they don't understand the culture. They don't understand the expectation, right? And when they see such a, I would say, strong opinion from the community, then then the team fear, right? Then the team feel like, shit, why would I do this, right? For so little money, right? Because most of the time, for Web2 company, they go into Web3, they just see it as a new revenue stream. Right? Oh, we mean some NFT, we have like a few $1 million, and that's it, right? I can tell my boss that I did a good job in Web3, right? And turns out this is not the case. That's why a lot of Web2 companies fail, right? And for us, we're kind of like an oddball in Web3. We are probably the only Web2 company that kind of have a very strong start in Web3, right? And right now we have NFT, we have our own token. I would say we are the only company that did this, right? So I would say this is a very, very interesting 2 years for me personally, also for our company, and also for our community.
So, being originally, of course, from the Web2 world, myself being an MBA, I can co-sign on that in the sense that you have to be very prescriptive, transparent about what you're doing, what you're building, when you're talking about investors. So would you say that in Web3, it's almost the opposite, that like you get penalized for showing too much in terms of roadmap, aside from the fact that like things are always changing anyway, so it's really hard to have like a long time horizon? But do you feel like sometimes like projects get penalized for just being like too like prescriptive sometimes about what they're doing, or just because there's like, you know, speculation leading up to it, then a dump, and it's just kind of hard to predict what's going to happen in the future? And to your point, it's a lot different than other Web 1, Web 2 worlds where you don't have that like feedback loop. And also, frankly, you don't have that kind of liquidity unless if you're like a publicly traded company. So what are your thoughts around that? Because it sounds to me, it's kind of like what I'm hearing is almost like you get penalized for being specific in Web3.
I would say that, I wouldn't say penalized, right? I would say that this is like different modes of communication, right? In Web2, the founder, the team barely communicate with the end users, right? Maybe they have a few blog posts once in a while, right? But in Web3, the community expects you to show up in the Discord, on Twitter, right? Every day, if not every week, right? If not every day. Yeah. They feel like, okay, I buy your NFT, right? So you are kind of like responsible to me, right? And which is also true, right? But a lot of founders, especially founders with Web2 backgrounds, they didn't feel that way, right? They only report to maybe their investors, maybe the shareholders, right? They don't report to their users, right? In Web3, you kind of like merge like users and investors, right? And stakeholders and shareholders, right? Together. Right. So somehow the expectation is very different. I would say it's the lack of culture that kind of like make like Web2 background company, right, kind of have a bad start in Web3. Usually they did pretty good job in marketing, right? But after the means, they usually fail to maintain the enthusiasm, right, about the community, about the product. Right? It's not just about they got penalized. Right? It's more about whether they feel that, I'm the team, I'm like up top, right? Yeah, you actually need to feel like, okay, your community is more like your boss, right? But not like your previous like VC or investor and stuff like that. Yeah, I would say that different expectation leads to different result. Yeah, and this is something that most of the I would say experienced founder, they didn't expect that, right? Because I've been running my company for 10 years. I'm the fucking CEO, right? Why would I need to talk to a quote unquote peasant, right? When they only buy my NFT, right? So this is like a very, very different expectation, right? From a Web2 company, right? Because if you're running like a company with like 100 million valuation, right? Probably you feel like, oh, you are the man, right? You are the boss, right? But in Web3, that means a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. Because right now, a lot of your community, they actually buy your NFT at a high price.
So would you say, because you said earlier that, and I completely agree, you guys are one of the few, let's call it like Web2 companies that successfully made that transition. A lot of these brands come from like legacy apparel, let's say, I'm not going to name companies, or legacy, what have you, mainstream brand. Would you say that your presence in like the meme space and kind of understanding that already, that was actually like a superpower that helped, have that served as kind of the catalyst that helped propel your success in Web3? Does it seem to be like a big part of that is just carrying the meme, I think. No pun intended.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because we have been building communities for 15 years, right? And we have been sharing memes, right, for 15 years. We communicate quite directly with our end users, right, for 15 years. Right? In Web3, it's almost like, hey, right now you get paid directly. Right now you have a place called Discord, called Telegram, called Twitter, where you can communicate with your holders directly. Right? So I would say it's like this. We are just doing the same job, but this time the so-called quote unquote revenue model is different, right? And the feedback loop is different. Yeah, that's why I would say that we still need to learn. There's still a big gap that we have to overcome, right? But somehow I would say that because we spend a lot of time and effort in it, so we are relatively better than most people. And honestly, no one really knows what to do in Web3, right? It's so new. There's like new meta, new narrative, like every 2 weeks, right? So a lot of the times, your past experience doesn't matter, right? Whether you keep learning, I think that part matters the most. Yes, the most. Yeah. So that's why we keep feeling that, hey, of course, we know some of their operating experience, some of the execution experience, and how to build a team, how to manage our finance. But at the same time, we also keep learning every day from our community and also from the bigger space. Yeah, so it's very tough for a founder because most of the time, hey, they have a niche, and then they just keep building on the niche, right? If you are building Spotify, right, people don't compare you with like building Google or building like YouTube or building like another company, right? But in Web3, especially in NFT, people see no matter what company that you build, they see you, hey, what's your floor price? Right? And all these marketplaces, they list all your floor price together, right? So somehow, whether, for example, like Yuga, they're building in GameFi, right? For us, we focus more on social, right? But people still compare us because they can use compare you with the price. In Web2 world, in the stock market, people still compare, right? But somehow the comparison was not that direct, right? So all these kind of like different expectation is actually very, very hard for the team to manage. Yeah. On one hand, you need to manage the expectation of your community. Right? On the other hand, you also need to explain to your community what you are building, why you are different, and why you should not compare us with other projects. And most of the time, a lot of our holders, right, they actually hold other NFT as well, right? So a lot of these things are mixed together, make the whole situation more complicated. Yeah.
You guys have done a great job of just having those like high floor prices. So we talked about potatoes earlier, free mint, and now it's trading at around like 2 ETH. And you have that direct line of communication, as you mentioned earlier. I know you have, I think it's like a weekly show that you talk to like holders on Twitter Spaces. And you're just out and about. I've heard you on many different podcasts before, and Twitter Spaces, and even ones that aren't your community. So I'm like an on-chain monkey. So I've heard you on our Spaces before. So you're kind of all over the place. So all that's to say is you're directly in tune with your community. It's not like Web2 brands where you have all these layers and proxies involved. And so when you see the floor price going up for your collection, I'm sure that there's a sense of like gratification in the sense that that's like, success. But does that also kind of keep you up at night too? Because knowing someone bought something at like 10 ETH their expectations are going to be different than the person that like minted it for free or half an ETH. Or what are your thoughts around that? Because I'm not a project like when I said I'm a founder, I'm like a more traditional company founder, not NFT project founder. That's something I've always wondered about, is just like how do you kind of like reconcile that? Like, does that keep you up at night sometimes, that person buying at 10 ETH is going to have different expectations than the one at 0.2 ETH? And then if the floor price drops to like say 8 ETH, and that's pretty good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with 8 ETH, but that person that bought it at 10 ETH is going to be pissed off. So yeah, like how do you manage all that? I guess that's part of the reason why being an NFT project founder, just being in a team, is one of the most difficult jobs in the world, is just because you don't, like you were talking about the SaaS model. Generally the person that paid $10 also paid, the next person also paid $10. It doesn't work like that in the NFT world. You have all sorts of different price points that they all bought into. Very unique. I can't really think of too many examples out there that are like that outside of the Web3 world. So is that something that keeps you up? Like, does the floor price, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but does the floor price going up also kind of stress you out, or how does that work for you guys?
This is a very good and deep question. I would say that number one, to me, I'm wearing different hats, right? On one hand, I'm a founder, right? I'm part of the project, right? Part of the project team, right? On the other hand, I'm also a community member, right? Not just of Memeland, right? But also of a lot of other NFT communities.
Right? I think you're an on-chain monkey too.
Because, yeah, exactly, right? I spent like 2,000 ETH, 3,000 ETH, right? To buy NFTs. And at the time, ETH was like $4,000, right? So I understand, I would say that I understand the pain of being a holder, right? And a lot of the communities that I was in, right, they didn't keep their promise, right? And they manage pretty poorly. They also communicate very poorly, right? That's why the floor price was down. That's why people were very unhappy, right? I witnessed that firsthand as a community member. That's why when we are running our own community, right? On one hand, I learn from other people's mistake, right? On the other hand, I also learn from what they did well, right? And then try to improve it. I'm a big fan of like a micro innovation, right? I don't feel like, we are the guys who push the space a big step forward, right? But we can keep improving what we have right now, and then building on the top of like the shoulder of the giants and stuff like that, right? So that's how I think about building in Web3. Right? On one hand, we need to talk about the big vision, why we are here doing what we are doing, right? So that people don't just focus on what we have right now, right? Because we don't control the floor price, to be honest, right? But we control what we are doing every single day. We also control the direction that we are going towards every day, right? Or in the future. Yeah, that's why when in the community, we talk about what we want to do, hey, why we are different, right? Instead of talking about floor price every single day. I mean, of course, in the beginning, right, when we started to launch our community, yeah, we focus a lot on the floor price, right? Right now, I would say that, hey, if we do our job well, the floor price will take care of itself, right? Yeah, I'm not saying that floor price is not important. I'm saying that floor price is very important, right? But as a founder, right, you cannot just focus on the floor price, right? Because floor price only express the current, I would say, sentiment, right, of your community right now, right? And also, it only represent the people who want to leave your community, leave your ecosystem, right? It's almost like driving a car, right? I mean, if you drive a car, you need to eyes forward, right? You need to look a little bit into the forward path, right? You can't just look at the front of your car, right? If you keep looking at a very short distance, you crash your car, right? So I would say that as a founder, you have to be mindful of the floor price, right? But at the same time, you should not pay too much attention at your floor price, right? Because that's not something that you can control. Yeah, so that's my personal take, right? But on the other hand, I also keep telling our community, hey, don't invest money that you can't afford to lose, right? Because Web3, NFT, crypto, right? They're all very volatile, right? And to me, right, personally, I'm almost like notorious as a bad NFT bias, right? So don't follow my buy, right? A lot of the time I buy NFT because I want to support the founders, right? A lot of the times, hey, I think that is a very interesting projects. That's why I want to learn. That's why I buy the NFT. For example, like on Monkey, right? I know Danny, right? Via NFT, right? I'm like an investor, right? In the parent company behind on Monkey, right? Before they launch an NFT, right? So for me, this is a part of building connections and also try to participate, right? As an investor, as a community member, right? So to me, I don't pay too much attention on other communities like For Price because I barely sell any NFTs, right? But I learn a lot, right, from each project. For example, when we are looking into like doing ordinals, Bitcoin stuff, right? Then I talk to Danny, right? And this is like something that is not money can buy, right? So what I focus on is very different from what general, I would say, NFT traders focus on, right? Maybe that makes a difference, right? When we build a company, because we still need to create a mechanism that people care and a mechanism that kind of helps the price go up, right? But number one, we don't promise that. Number two, we don't focus too much on that, right? We know that is like the petroleum that you need, right? When you keep traveling to your destination. But at the same time, we have to understand that, hey, we are no matter how high your floor price goes, right? All this money actually doesn't really come to us, right? I mean, maybe there was some royalty, right? But right now, royalty is basically zero, right? So that makes the floor price even more detached from the company. Yeah. So I would say that as a founder, this is something that I still keep learning every day. Yeah. Some people say that, oh, founders should care about the floor price. Some people say that, oh, founders should not care about the floor price. I don't know, right? But to me, I want to be mindful of that, but I also remind our company that, hey, don't buy into the hype, don't buy into the FOMO, right? Just invest money that you can afford to lose, and at the same time, just own your fucking decision, right? I didn't ask you to buy, right? I mean, even I talk about how bullish we are about what we're building, right? But I didn't ask you to buy, right? So you should be responsible for your own decision, right? I'm not saying that I'm not responsible for our project. I'm just saying that everyone should be responsible for their own decision, right? And then this is how I see Web3. Right? Why you see the sentiment in Web3 is generally bad is because people always blame others, right? Hey, the founders blame the community. They suck, right? They don't hold, right? And then the community blame the founders. Say, fuck, right? They don't care about the floor price, right? So it feels like a lot of like babies working together. Right? For me, I want to become the grow up in the game, right? On one hand, I'm fucking old in this space. On the other hand, I want to build something that lasts for like 10 years, 100 years, right? So the perspective, the way that we manage our company is quite different from a lot of projects. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You hit actually exactly on a few points. So something I've said, I've had this podcast for 2 years now. I say it almost every episode, and I'll take a moment to say exactly what you just said. And there's 2 points to that, which is A, only spend money that you can afford to lose. B, just buy stuff that you vibe with. Because if you do those 2 things, you'll always have fun. Like, it doesn't matter. You won't worry about floor price. You won't worry about your bags. You're just having fun if you're just vibing with whatever you buy with, whatever that is, and you're just spending money that you can afford to lose. It's fun. But if you're like staying up at night because your bags are down, you're probably overexposed, and you should kind of reevaluate your life decisions. Because to your point, I mean, like, you can only do so much as a founder. 95% of that stuff just like outside of your control. You can't control like FTX going under, or the stuff with Luna, or even ETH going up, for example, which is maybe like a good thing, but the floor price might go down as a result of that, because sometimes they're like inversely correlated. So I'm just going to ask one more question about floor price before we move on, just because it kind of spawned. I didn't expect to ask this question, but it kind of spawned something in my head that I think is kind of interesting. Do you guys have any metrics that you measure, like, because you have these, like, you have the degen element, right? You just have these people that are speculating and just try to buy low, make like $20 and get out, whatever, after royalties and, other fees involved. Do you guys have any metrics that you measure in terms of like how long the holder's been holding? And then like, if they leave the community, it's like, maybe we should reach out to them, or kind of just like reevaluate things, or how does that look like? I'm not a project founder, but that kind of seems like a metric that I would kind of keep my eye on, is just like how long holders are in the collection, and then like when and if they make the decision to sell. And also things around like people returning back, I think, is also like an interesting. I don't know if these dashboards even like exist or anything, but it just kind of seems interesting to me.
We don't track that internally, right? Because at the end of the day, when your floor price goes up, right, a lot of people will take profit, right? Because they want to make sure that, okay, right now I sell and then recover my costs, right? So everything I have is actually free ride, right? So a lot of people do that, right? So if they actually sell, it doesn't mean that they are bearish, right? Because you still need to look at how many NFT they still have. And also you need to look at the patterns of their holders, right? Maybe they are like NFT traders, right? Then to them, the only god is like money, right? So no matter what you talk about community, about product, about the future, right? They actually don't care, right? They use the news as an alpha, right? To trade, right? So they don't really care about your community that much, right? But I would say that when a founder goes to Discord frequently, somehow you know who are the people who show up, right? And as a founder, you're also mature enough to understand who are the guys who actually care about the development. Right? I'm talking about development, right? Not about the price, right? Of the community. And then you can find some guys who actually are really good, really smart, right? And you talk to those guys, right? So that you have your eyes or ears, right, in your community. Right? And of course, you talk to your moderators, you talk to your team, you hang out in your community, right? So a lot of these things will give you a decent sense of sentiment about your community. Yeah, and I understand. I mean, I work in startup long enough to understand that most of the time there is a big like silent majority, right? And as much as the biggest FUD, right, in most of the projects that we've seen, maybe Asuki in the past, maybe Moonbergs, maybe Bored Ape, right? I mean, you look at the number of people listing their NFTs is usually around maybe like a few percentage, right? Usually below like 10%, right? I mean, if you have a turnover rate of like less than 10%, it's actually not too bad, right? That's why I believe that most of the FUD is kind of like exaggerated, right? Because most of the actions and most of the discussions happening on X, right, on Twitter, right? And all these like social media algorithm, right? They try to amplify, right, all your anger, all your like active discussion, right? So you need to zoom out and then actually talk to your holders, right, to understand what they like, what they don't like, right? But meanwhile, just by tracking the numbers, right, is actually not good enough, right? Because the floor price is already a number, right? I would say that you need something like scientific, right, which is like numbers, right? But also at the same time, you also need something like kind of like emotional, right, which is more like the sentiment, right? You actually talk to them, what they like, what they don't like. I think combining arts and science in a way, I think that's how you should run a community. Because you can see that some communities, right, even if they are down bad from the floor price, from the all-time high, they're still vibing, right, in the Discord. They're still using the PFP, right? And that's how I see that's a real community. When your price is actually high and people are very bullish, right? That's not a community. It's like, oh, you become like fucking rich, right? And then all your friends are not actually your friends, right? Only when you are poor, right? All these guys still hang around with you. Those are your real friends. I see community as kind of like an extended friendship, right? So we need to, on one hand, you can't keep 100% people don't sell, right? Because if you, let's say our MVP, right? We minted like 5 from 3 ETH, right? And then right now it's like 50 ETH, right? I mean, 10x in ETH terms, and also I think even more, right? In like a fiat terms, right? So it's very normal for people to sell, right? But I would say that why they sell is it matters, right? If they sell because they hate you, then you are not doing a good job as a founder. Yeah, but if they sell because they want to take profit, then that's part of the game. Yeah. So it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is there's a quantitative part of it, and then there's a qualitative also. And you really, really need to stay in tune with the qualitative. And then even within the qualitative, it sounds like you have to have this, a way to kind of just parse things out, because if you just like look at X at a very superficial level, to your point, the algorithm just wants to amplify things that are generally negative because that gets the most reactions, but that's not necessarily the sentiment of your community. So you even have to go deeper into the signals and, directly engage people, directly talk to your team who's, like moderators, like you said, and see like what's the, sentiment, and kind of look at those kinds of things. And if people are having fun on Discord and people are, if it's like 1 or 2 people on X that are just like shit posting, you're probably doing a pretty good job. But if it's like an overwhelming, and you also mentioned like if you, I think, like you said, if you have one of your collections is like a PFP, I think that's always like a very strong indicator too, strong sentiment, which transitions into something I wanted to talk about. Last point is the meme coin, which is something we touched on earlier. There was a period of time, and still is what current state even, that everyone has meme coin as part of their like Twitter handle. So let's just maybe start from the beginning. Like, what is like, how do you, what inspired you guys to drop a coin? Because, you know, there's some risks involved with that maybe you can elaborate on. What made you guys think that that's going to provide value to your holders? And there was also, like I said, that thing with everyone putting it in their Twitter handle, or X handle, I should say. So I imagine there was some benefit there. So can you just kind of unpack meme coin for us?
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about the Twitter handle, right, the X handle, right, that was part of our marketing campaign.
Very effective. You couldn't get away from it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, hey, David, we have been working on social media for 15 years, right? We fucking know how social media marketing is working, right? In the past, we did it for our clients, right? But right now, we did it for ourselves, right? And it shows we understand the tools, right? The platforms, right? So, I mean, yeah. I'm not trying to toot our own horns, right? But we understand the game, right? On the social media part, right? Yeah. And at the same time, what meme coin, right, does, right? Honestly, we have a white paper that says it literally does nothing, right? It's for entertainment purpose only, right? I feel like in Web3, the most important thing is, hey, how can you get more people into your ecosystem, right? Because we talk about building together, right? We talk about ownership. We talk about decentralization, right? NFT, no matter how big a project is, how many holders do you have? Maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000, right? Maybe 20,000. 20,000 is a decent size of community, right? But 20,000, honestly, right? If you talk to any games, any apps, right? They have DAU of like more than 10 million people, right? 20,000 people. Actually, it's not that many people. Yeah, so we want to expand our ecosystem, right? But the thing is, our NFTs are doing a decent job, right? Potatoes, 4 pies, the cheapest collection, right? The lowest level collection, right? It's like 2 ETH. 2 ETH, that means like $5,000. $5,000 is a lot of money, right? I mean, I don't even spend that much money in real life, right? Except buying handbags for my wife, right? But other than that, I don't spend that much money on myself, right? But people are throwing money, right, at these NFT collections like nothing, right? But that's like a very, very small group of people who can do that, right? I understand from the first hand that, hey, there are a lot of people, they are interested, right, in your community, right, in your ecosystem. They want to support you, but they just don't have that much money, right, to buy into your NFT collections, right? Meanwhile, a fungible token, right, even if you have $10, even if you have $100, you still can get into the ecosystem. You can still voice out, right? You can still kind of like build together, right? That's how we think about the strategy. Internally, right, we don't have a roadmap, but we have a 3-step action plan. We always say that, hey, NFT is for building community, right? Fungible token is for decentralizing the value. And then product is to reach the masses, right? We did 3 NFT collections, right? We have a pretty solid community to begin with. And right now we have a meme coin so that we can decentralize the value, right? Because everyone who owns a meme coin, right, they can be part of our ecosystem, no matter whether you are so-called quote-unquote whale or just a small fish, right? And then right now, of course, we need to build our own products, right? But we try not to tease that, when we build the products, right, the token price will goes up, right? Honestly, we have no idea. And that's not our main purpose, right? When we build products, what we really want to do is, hey, what are the problems that we are solving, right? Either in Web2 space or in Web3 space, right? And that's something that we focus on every single day, right? And right now we put the tokens out there. Of course, we have like a better financial tools, right, and resources for us to work with other projects, right? For example, we are actually in talks to acquire another NFT project, right? And we can pay in meme coin, right? When we have a new marketing campaign, right? In the past, we need to get a lot of sponsors and stuff. Right now, we can pay in meme coin. I think all this kind of stuff it's almost like giving us like steroid, right, in building companies, right? And I think all this is very, very unique and interesting in Web3. And I think a lot of people, a lot of projects, right, if they only have NFT, they kind of like, it's like fighting in only with one arm, right? And if they only have token, right? People are always focused on the price. They don't focus on too much on what they're building, right? So what we want to build is, hey, can we become like a full suite, like Web3 company, right? We have NFT, we have token, we also have product, right? That's something that we have been envisioned, right, from day one, right? So I would say, on paper, right, the meme coin doesn't do anything, right? But of course, for us, it's part of our tool to build out our ecosystem. It is also our tool for us to help us to build out other parts of our ecosystem as well. Yeah.
So it seems like it does multiple things. Some things I'm hearing is, one is it could be like a form of like currency in terms of like transaction, meaning that, like you said, like instead of like sponsorship, you can pay people in like meme coins. So it kind of is like acting almost as like a currency. The other part, to your point, because yeah, at these prices, I mean, it's not cheap and super affordable for everyone to get into the ecosystem and the with the NFTs, but it provides a very affordable on-ramp for people to just get into the ecosystem, you know, in terms of like a fungible token. So like if you own meme coin, let's say, does that allow you to get in, like, do you guys have like a token gated Discord, like some of the channels, and just being a token holder of the fungible token meme coin allows you to get into some of those Discord channels? And also along those lines, like, I don't know how much you can speak to this, but is there going to be like benefits also for those holders, perhaps in the way of perhaps maybe future mints for NFTs? Is like maybe governance token going to be a thing? Or I don't know how much you can speak to some of those things. I'm just throwing random shit out there, but and seeing what sticks. But can you riff a little bit on that?
I'm not a big fan of governance token.
Okay.
Right? On one hand, I don't believe in decision by community.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been a founder for quite a long time. I think that the smart decision, right, is usually made by smart people. It's not by consensus. Right? So, and a lot of the time, you almost need to make contrarian decision where people hate it, right, immediately, but they only see it, right, after some time.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I don't want our community to vote on key decisions, right? Maybe on some other, I would say, less important decisions where people have an insight, right? But most of the key, I would say, development decision, right? I don't think it should be voted by the community. Not because our community is stupid, right? But just because most of the, I would say, consensus decision, right, is usually not the most brilliant decision, not the most outstanding decision out there, because it's almost like, hey, we need to compromise, right? And as an actor, right, we know that most of the compromises is usually not lead to the best result.
Yeah, it's like lose-lose.
It's kind of like, I wouldn't say lose-lose, right? But it almost always kind of like maximize the value, maximize the ROI, right? So as a founder, I don't like that, right? And then for answering your question, right, as a community, I would say that getting a taste, right, or like a token, right, into a Web3 company is the best way that you can enjoy the ride and understand how the company is doing, right? Because you have some skin in the game, right? Of course, some people focus a lot on the monetary value, on the money side, right? But for us, we want it to be fun, which is also why we launch our token is called meme coin, right? Literally called meme coin. And then we launch it as a meme coin. We are the only meme coin that get launched by Binance. And then we are the only meme coin that is actually kind of like have a legit team behind, right? So I think a lot of these like contrarian, like opposite, like contradictory stuff, right? We try to create something interesting, right? That no one has done it before, right? And then we try to do it. Yeah. And honestly, we are working with our community to see what we can do together, right? And I think this is the part where Web3 is very interesting to me because, number one, we launch a token, right? But, how do we move the token forward? Right? That's something that, okay, maybe we can test out different ideas, right? Because we literally tell people that, hey, there's no value, right? So somehow, even if we have a very fun collaboration, we can do it, right? Let's say, we launch a collaboration with Pornhub, right? Today. It's fine, right? And then tomorrow, we launch a collection. We launch a collab with like SPCA. It's also okay, right? So I feel like the sky is the limit, right? I mean, the sky is not even the limit, right? People say that, okay, the moon, right? Go to the moon, right? Maybe the moon is the limit, right? So I think a lot of this kind of stuff is something that we can do, right? And we can rally the community together, right? Because in the past, as a company, you do stuff, you actually have to spend marketing budget, right, to promote it. But right now, because a lot of people are paying attention to what you do, right? Because on one hand, they see whether they want to hold or sell, right? And you almost enjoy that kind of like marketing power without spending money. And people are actually spending money, right, to support your marketing, right? So I think all of this kind of stuff is very, very new, right, to me as a founder and also to us as a company, right? But we want to experiment a lot of these kind of things together. Yeah. But that being said, I understand a lot of people want to have something. Oh, what's a utility, right, of a token, a utility of a NFT? A lot of the time, the community is a utility, right? The friends you make along the way is also the utility. Right? Maybe we cannot put a money value to it, but how much value that you can put on your wife or your kids and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, I mean, maybe a lot, right? Maybe a lot less. I don't know. Yeah, but I believe that having a skin in the game and we are, I would say, on the same boat. I think that is a real power that we didn't see before, right? With just Web2, right? Because I mean, when Facebook went IPO, when all these like big company went IPO, right? The only one who benefited the most was actually only the team and also the early investors, right? But right now, on one hand, you can be part of the builders, right? You can be part of the communities. And a lot of the other projects, right? They do governance token, right? They also do like a votes proposal and stuff like that. They actually can build with the community and also build with the team together, right? That's not the approach that we like, right? But that's the approach that happens, right? So I think a lot of things are still very new, right? So I don't know what we can do right now, but I would say that there are so many things that we can mobilize our community just because they're not just a user, right? They're part of the stakeholder, right? Not shareholder, right? I mean, SEC, I don't want you to sue me, right? Yeah, but somehow I feel like, hey, just do fun thing together. I think that is something that we never saw before. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I agree completely with your sentiments regarding governance token. From my observations and being a part of a few DAOs, I mean, you've got multiple things going on. One of them's, to your point, not necessarily the consensus is like the best decision. Sometimes those decisions are slow to make in a space that you really need to move rapidly and you need to make like quick executive decisions. On top of that, I would just say like apathy too. Like a lot of people just don't participate and then they get upset that a decision's been made, but it's, they weren't really part of like the governance decision. So I totally agree with you on that. So just a couple more questions. I know we're a little bit over time, but it's been so fun talking to you, Ray. So along the lines of meme coin, you brought up some interesting points there regarding like potential collaboration. So you have like 9gag, like, the legacy business of yours, which obviously ties very much to meme. Are a lot of like your 9gag folks also in like the NFT, the Web3 ecosystem, and if not, do you see a potential of kind of introducing them through the meme coin, maybe like that being like kind of like a gateway drug that if they post a lot of things, they could get some meme coin and then they start getting some exposure? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts there?
It's too early to say, right? For example, on meme coin, the on-chain wallets that host meme coins are about 1 million, which is like top 6. Yeah. It's like top 6 in the ERC20 ecosystem, right? The ones above us are like ETH, right? And then maybe like some stable coin, right? Yeah, and also some really, really big meme coin, right? So for that part, right, it's like 1 million. It's like a big number, right? But for like 9gag, right, even though we are not the biggest like social media company out there, we still have like 200 million, right, audience every month, right? So it's not even 1%, right? I think that is something that is very bullish, right? But I think the question is when and also how, right? Because I mean, after 2 years in Web3, I still believe that there are a lot of things that we need to do better in Web3 in order to get the mass adoption. Not just about the user experience, right? But about, hey, what are actually the things that you need Web3 to do, right? That will be doing much better than doing in Web2. Right? I think a lot on the social media side, I mean, people don't see the value of Web3 yet, right? And also a lot on the product side. Hey, why do I have to connect the wallet and then use Ledger and whatever? And then we have to remember the private seed and stuff like that. I mean, all these kind of things is still very difficult to explain to the so-called quote unquote like normies, right? And this I think it will take some time, right? But down the road, we are basically talking to the same group of people, right? Because I mean, in the past, right, I still remember that a lot of I'm old enough to remember that a lot of the companies, right, when they wanted to become like a digital company, right, they want to put .com in their company names, right?
Yeah.
Like hotels.com. I mean, maybe hotels.com is not the good example, right? But they have to have a .com on their billboard, right? Outside of their shop and stuff, right? I feel like we are into that early stage where people still ask the questions. Hey, why blockchain? Why Web3? Right? But to me, I would say that building in Web3 is like a new sentiment, right? And also a new I would say incentive, right, to build together. Right? I always talk about these things with our team, with our communities. I mean, people pay a lot of attention, right, to OpenAI these days, right, because of the Sora, right, video, right, that they make. It's like awesome.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we knew Sam, right, when we were at YC. He actually is a partner that actually accepted us. Right? So I'm happy for how I'm really happy and admire what they're doing right now. Right? But I believe that there are two AIs that are very important to humans these days, right? Number one is artificial intelligence, which OpenAI and other companies, they're championing. They're the champion of that, right? Another AI is actually aligned interests, right? And this is something that Web3 does it really, really well, right? So if we can and combine these tools, that can be super powerful. If we can be a champion in just one of these AIs, right, it's already very powerful. Right? I believe that a lot of the Web3 companies, we are doing a pretty good job, right? Or at least started to do a good job on the aligned interest part. Right? We still have to figure out what exactly that we need to build, right? But somehow along that line, I think we can find something interesting, and that's like beneficial, right, to the team, to the so-called investors, right? And also to our community. Yeah, so I'm very bullish about this, right? And not to mention, okay, right now Bitcoin have like a ETF, right? That means like normal people actually can buy Bitcoin, right, with their fiat, right? And you don't have to explain to people that, oh, okay, Bitcoin is not a scam, right? I mean, this is like a huge milestone, not on the price yet, but I believe that the meaning behind it is huge, right? And as a participant, as a builder in the Web3 space, I'm so happy about that, right? So I would say we are still early, right? Everyone is still early, right? If you listen to David's show, definitely you are early, right? So I'm really, really bullish, right? Not about the price, but about the future that we can co-build together, right? The key is right? Not just build together, right? But co-build together. Yep.
Yeah, it's one of the things I love about Web3, and I haven't heard the acronym applied that way. I like it. I love it. I'm going to steal it, and I'm going to use it. AI, aligned interest, 100%. That's one of the things that Web3 does really well. And then on a different note, when we're talking about meme coin and 9gag, it's funny because as I was saying it, I was like, I think I'm onto something here, and I'm suggesting something to Ray. But after I heard you talk, you convinced me maybe it's not such a good idea, because to your point, when you, like, as a startup, one of the things you kind of have to answer is like, why now? And to your point, I think you articulated it very well there, is that maybe it's not right now for like meme coin, 9gag. UI maybe is a little bit like too clunky. When I say 9gag, I mean like the legacy business, that it might maybe a little bit too early still, if I hear you correctly, right? Or it just might not.
I mean, sometimes you just don't know,
okay.
right?
So non-committal then.
Because in Web3, yeah, exactly, right? On one hand, I want to manage your expectations as well, right? So I don't want to tell people, because in this space, I understand one thing, and also we pay our lessons fee to learn, that is, hey, on one hand, of course, you can talk big and then build up the hype, but people will get disappointed, right? So a better way to build is actually to lower the expectation, right? And then deliver, right? And then kind of like out deliver, right? So that's why we always don't really talk about. I mean, not always, right? But we haven't talked about a lot of like big things into the future and integration with NetGet and then build something very awesome and blah blah blah. I would say that if you believe in us, right? If you have been with us for the last 2 years, you understand how we operate, right? We always try to reward the believers, right? Because when we talk about community, those guys who believe in you when you are down, right? Those are the real friends, right? Those are the real communities. And we want to make sure that they get rewarded, right? In whatever the measure, right? Maybe in fun, we reward it in money or whatever, right? But we try not to promise that, because that will get people disappointed, right? Because sometimes in Web3, people overhype themselves too much, right? So we just kind of like constantly observing, hey, what is a good time and what's a good way, right, to either to integrate, right, or to kind of like launch something cool together. Because at the end of the day, I believe that the infrastructure is not yet ready, right? But at the same time, it's less about the infrastructure; it's more about the sentiment, right? Because it's easier to build among a group of people, right? That are already bullish about the tech, right? Yeah. Instead of, okay, we have to fight against the wind to explain to people why blockchain is awesome, right? Don't explain to people why blockchain is awesome, right? Just build something awesome so that people will try to use your product, right? That would be a better way, and that's why I believe that that's the direction that we want to do, right? But at the same time, I also acknowledge that, hey, this is one thing that people all kind of like, I would say, aligned on, right? Is, hey, how can we make money, right? How can we increase our personal wealth, right? I would say that in Web3, this is like the opportunity of our lifetime, right? To learn about what blockchain is about, right? To try to participate in Web3, right? I'm very, very lucky, right? I mean, we launched like NiGet, riding the wave with like how social media was kind of like started, right? And right now, before I was too old, right? We have a chance to build in Web3 again, right? Web2, Web3, we kind of like riding two waves, right? How many times can you see it, right? So right now I'm a lot older, right, than 15 years ago. But at the same time, hopefully, I'm a lot wiser, right? So I try to build something that can last for a very long time, right? Not just because for us, right, for our team, but also because, hey, I want to build something meaningful, right? I didn't have to launch Web3. I mean, it sounds like very, very, very arrogant, right? But to say that is, hey, I'm rich enough to live a decent life, right, with NiGet. Not because I'm super rich, right, but because I don't spend a lot, right, and I just live a very simple life, right? But at the same time, hey, the opportunity is so huge that we just can't stand out as a bystander, right? You fucking want to build into it, right? Because we are product builder, right? So I encourage all the listeners, right, of David's show, right? If you're a builder, and if you are like on the fences, right, whether you should build in Web3 and stuff, right, start to buy a few NFTs that you really like, and then get into the community, right, to understand what are the problems that people haven't solved in Web3, and then just to try to build something, right? You see a lot of like younger kids, they make a lot of money in Web3 already, right? But if you are like an older guy like me, right, I'm like 40 years old right now, right? So what can you offer, right, to the space right now, right? Think about that, right? And I think one thing that we need to understand as a founder is, in Web3, you need to give before you get, right? If you operate within that ethos, right, then you should be doing you will do a pretty good job in Web3. Right? I hope NiGet, Memeland, right, myself is like an example where you can learn from, right? Learn on one hand, older guys can still make it work in Web3. I wouldn't say make it, right, but at least make it work in Web3. Number two, it's a Web2 company can also work in Web3. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s too, by the way. And it's kind of funny because only in Web3 can you say if you're in your 40s, you're considered old. Anywhere else, you're kind of considered young. You just imparted us with a lot of wisdom there, which is a note that I wanted to end on. And I was going to ask you, what are some, parting words that you have for people that are aspiring to start their own projects? And from what I'm hearing is a couple of things. Is one, build something that people really want. Don't, it shouldn't be about the technology and the fact that it's on blockchain. It should be just really cool. And the technology is kind of in the background. And then the other thing is something that I say also on the podcast quite a bit, and also even on X, is that you have to really give before you get. Like, people can sense when you're trying to value extract from a mile away. And if they sense that, then that's it, And I think that's something that Web2 brands struggle with in this space, is that it just, people see it a mile away. It's too extractive and you just can't do that. you have to enter the space thoughtfully. You have to give, you have to participate like the way that you did it, buy NFTs. Yeah, maybe you're down bad, I'm down bad, we're all down bad, but like you have to, you just have to be in the space, be present, learn, and then be a participant. Then, at that point, you build credibility where you still provide something, in the space. It's not that you're extracting, but it's more of a different type of exchange. So, Ray, it was incredible having you on the pod and you sharing your journey, 9GAG's journey, everything about Memeland. Man, we love you. We celebrate you. Thank you so much for joining the pod on a Saturday morning. I know I kept you a little bit over here. All of us here at the Blockchain Experience wish you the continued success. So thanks again for showing up.
Thank you.
And that concludes our show. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Ray. I think Ray is one of the most thoughtful people in this space, and here are some key takeaways that I had. First, before you jump into something in Web3, spend some time participating and contributing in the space. You can't just enter and start taking. I mean, like nobody will give to you. We talked about that on the pod. And on that note, don't be afraid to pay to learn. So this is different than pay to earn. This is pay to learn, meaning that you spend a little bit of money, whether it's ETH, Solana, what have you, and you're using that money to just really learn from the experience and not really with any expectations of a monetary ROI. So on that along those lines, just make sure that when you're doing that, spend what you can afford to lose, which you should be doing anyways. Third point, AI, not artificial intelligence, but aligned interests. That's one of Web3's superpowers, is that with fewer stakeholders at play, namely, you've got project and holders, it's much easier and straightforward to have aligned interests to move things forward, as opposed to having like 4 or 5 plus stakeholders in a Web2 or Web1 business. And then lastly, you don't necessarily need to change the world or cause like a crazy paradigm shift to be successful. And I would extend that not just like Web3, but in business in general. You can do what Ray called micro innovations and just dramatically improve something that works, but isn't optimal. And we see cases of that, many case studies of that actually in the business world. So yeah, the episode ran longer than usual, but hopefully you had some good learnings about one of the most successful projects and learnings from one of the most successful project founders in this space. And of course, I cannot drop off without giving you guys an update on Scoop 3. We had a major announcement. Actually, we had a couple of major announcements last week that picked up earned media coverage. One is we made the pivot to build on Base, and that's based on, no pun intended, on user feedback. So by building on Base, which is an Ethereum layer 2 backed by Coinbase, that'll give us a lot more latitude to be able to deploy our solution in many different forms, not just necessarily podcasts, although it's going to be our first entry. Second is we took out a patent on a technology that tokenizes media content. And real simply, what this means is for Scoop 3, the podcasters, they don't have to change their workflow whatsoever when they drop an episode. So they do exactly what they're doing. And Scoop 3 kind of just takes care of the rest in the background without any human intervention, which wasn't the case before. That also means with that patent pending in play is that we expect other entities to want to leverage this technology. So it unlocks potential licensing deals, which would be another source of revenue for Media 3 Labs. So yeah, man, just a lot of big things happening for us at Media 3 Labs, the parent company to Scoop 3. So if you're still thinking about investing and haven't done so yet, check the show notes for the link, head over to the link and make your investment. Minimum's only $100. Credit cards are accepted. Everything's processed through WeFunder. And cool thing is that you don't need any accreditation. So you can just get into a pre-IPO company on some, relatively generous terms. So that's all I have for you folks. Appreciate your time. And until next time.
Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. It's the blockchain spell made give it up for Maker David. Give it up, give it up, give it up for Maker David. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience. Welcome to the blockchain experience. Bringing dope content to the audience.